Explain to us what this means. What just happened here?
The Supreme Court struck down as unconstitutional the federal law that prevents states from legalizing sports betting. So the court didn't just legalize sports gambling everywhere. It removed the restriction for state lawmakers. So now any state that wants to create a sports betting environment for their casinos and racetracks can go forward without any restrictions or prohibitions under federal law. And we'll begin to see state legislatures in states like New York and Delaware, begin to move forward on this. So it will create a nationalized legal sports gambling environment.
What do you expect the states to do?
Any state that wants to have it can move forward right now. Beginning in early January, we saw 20 states introduce bills to legalize sports betting that were contingent upon the Supreme Court decision. Now that the Supreme Court has ruled, I think we'll see those states begin to expedite their consideration of those bills and maybe sign a few of them into law. So by the time the NFL football season begins, we could have anywhere from 10 to 12 states that have legal sports wagering. States like New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Mississippi, any state that wants to have it. Massachusetts may be another, Rhode Island, but not our home state of Florida. That one may take a little bit longer.
When can I gamble?
You could gamble now on any website you want. It's never been, forbidden fruit. Because through the magic of the internet, you can go to these offshore sites and place wagers. The problem is you do not have any consumer protections or recourse should something go wrong, and you're also violating the law. Now, with sports betting becoming legal and regulated, I think you'll be able to do it in channels that are going to protect your money a little bit better, and you won't have to worry about violating the law.
What changes do you expect to come with regulation?
You're going to see the black market, this $150 billion black market it won't be eliminated entirely, but you'll see a large chunk of that move into legal and regulated markets. So overall, it will create more interest in sports, more sports gambling. It will change the way that people consume and watch sports. The networks will probably have gambling shows preceding the games. Newspapers like your Miami Herald or the New York Post might have greater content generated to sports betting. It's going to generate and power, interest in the games and lead to greater fan engagement. And in turn, you'll probably see an uptick in TV and other radio and streaming ratings. So this overall will generate greater interest in sporting events because it doesn't matter what the score is, there will always be a bettable event, even in a blowout.
How far away are we from all 50 states being cool with this?
Our lifetimes. We will never have 50 states legalizing sports betting. Forget about it in Utah, all right, with the Mormons. Forget it. It will never pass. And in Florida, the prominence of Disney and the lobbying influence of Disney, I think, will keep it off the drawing board for at least a couple of years, because you're going to see a lot of these battles playing out in different states where, let's say, the Indian tribes and the racetracks and the casinos are all going to battle over who gets the exclusive right to offer it. So some of the intramural battles, which sometimes play out in gambling legislation, I think are going to delay the rollout of sports betting in certain states. And, of course, the leagues are now, getting involved in the conversations, and the leagues like the NBA and Major League Baseball, they want a cut of the action. The leagues believe that they deserve, 1% of the handle because they've created this product, and the leagues will also, incur greater compliance and regulatory expenses and investigative expenses. So while the leagues and the casinos, battle it out over what the laws should look like, I think that will delay the full nationalization of sports betting. But certainly this year we should have anywhere between 6 to 12 states. We'll never have 50. And until the leagues and the casinos can find a consensus on the key issues, it may take a little bit longer to even have a majority of states with legal sports betting. Could be 3 years.
Dan, how much money could this mean to a particular state? How much money?
It depends on how expansive the casino industry is. You take Florida by way of example. We have 30 licensed racetracks and racinos. It could be huge, not just in tax revenue. The tax revenue is just one piece of it. Maybe in a state like Florida, we're looking at an 8-figure amount annually, which is not a game changer, but it does drive visitation and it drives tourism to the state of Florida. So the overall economic impact is going to be tremendous. But if you're going to view it just strictly in terms of how much tax revenue will be created from sports betting, probably not as much as people expect. But the overall impact from the boost to the gaming industry and to tourism can't be underestimated.
What do you imagine it's going to look like? Like, how are people are going to be able to go where and place a bet?
Is it just casinos? Is it racetracks? Like, are we going to turn the dog track into a sports book?
Absolutely. It will take place in two forms or two venues. Land-based casino and racetrack venues will be the first movers because most state legislatures will likely want to protect their in-state license holders first before opening it up to anyone else. So the casinos and the racetracks will be the first places to have it, and then eventually you will see more of a broader online capability where you could see internet companies partnering with casinos and racetracks. I mean, the goal here is to eliminate the black market, and the only way to really accomplish that is by making it as easy as possible for customers to bet, and by forcing them to drive 20 miles or 30 miles to go to a racetrack is not the most efficient way of accomplishing it. I think we're eventually headed to like a DraftKings or a FanDuel type of scenario where in most states you will be able to place wagers on your mobile phone or on an app as easy as you could set your fantasy sports lineup. But we're not quite there yet. Certain states are going to have that right out of the gate, but in others it's going to be land-based only. But certainly in 5 years we will see predominantly a mobile aspect to this, and we might even see in-stadium wagering in those states that are progressive enough to allow it.
Once this door is open, once the Supreme Court just opened it, and it's open now for good, right?
Yeah, but that's only step one. It didn't. The Supreme Court did not legalize sports betting. States are now permitted to make policy decisions as to whether those states wish to have legal sports betting or keep it prohibited. So in the vast majority of states right now, all forms of gambling that are not expressly permitted are prohibited. So sports betting is still illegal in Florida and in 46 out of the 50 states. So those states will have to convene, and their legislators will make policy choices as to whether or not this is a good thing. This is all about advancing states' rights. It is not forcing sports betting on states. It is just giving states the opportunity for the first time to decide whether or not they wish to legalize sports betting for their citizens. Before today, the states had their hands tied, and the argument advanced at the Supreme Court was that binding the states in this way violates the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. Now, with the federal law struck down, states can now proceed in any way they wish. They could legalize, or they could keep sports gambling prohibited, as is currently the case in most states.
Dan, we got less than 30 seconds here. Who hates today's ruling the most?
Very few people. Even the sports leagues privately love today's decision because it will increase fan engagement. It will increase TV ratings, TV revenues. The only people who I think hate today's decision are those who are morally or ethically opposed to any gambling expansion, and certainly those organizations that work with problem gamblers and compulsive gamblers. They certainly have good reason to have mixed feelings about today's decision. But virtually every stakeholder sees this as a positive development, even the leagues.
Those feelings wouldn't be mixed from those people, Dan. They're not happy about this.
No. But I think it's more beneficial to work with state legislatures to create protections and resources to help them, because right now those who have gambling addictions and bet illegally in offshore markets do not receive any programs from these illegal operators. So to the extent there's a mixed feeling about it, I think those compulsive gambling organizations want to work with state lawmakers to create programs and have resources allocated to help people. So I'm not saying there isn't a downside to this, because there certainly is a downside for those people and their families that suffer from addictions to gambling. But now, hopefully state lawmakers will adopt sensible regulations and mandate requirements upon casinos and racetracks to help people who have a problem, either by excluding them or allowing friends or family members to exclude them from any gambling participation. information. No such mechanism or resource exists in the illegal market. So that's sort of one of the silver linings, at least to that group.
Thank you, Dan. We appreciate the insight, sir.
Thank you very much for having me on, Dan. Pleasure as always.